didn't just inherit your mom's genes, you inherited her nervous system too. From the moment we're in the womb, we're absorbing our mother's emotional state, her stress levels, and even the way she regulates her own nervous system. This all happens through something called neuroception, which is our body's ability to subconsciously detect safety or danger. If your mom was anxious, overwhelmed, or dysregulated, your nervous system likely wired itself to mirror that. This could be why some of us feel anxious for no reason. Our bodies actually learn to be hypervigilant before we had the words to describe it. It can show up as things like chronic stress and anxiety, feeling unsafe in safe environments, struggling to regulate our emotions, and this constant feeling of like waiting for the other shoe to drop. And for some, even chronic illness and nervous system dysregulation. But here's the thing, just because you inherited a dysregulated nervous system does not mean you're stuck with it.
One of the reasons why we inherit the nervous systems of our parents and our moms is because we get the conditions that they have, but because our mothers and our fathers are old school, mama and daddy didn't have diagnoses. Back in the day, they were called weird. Back in the day, they were called different or other. But mama had ADHD. Mama had autism. Daddy had ADHD. Daddy was autistic. Mama may have been dyslexic. So could dad. That's why I think it's so important to get a diagnosis. And you have to name what's going on so that way you can treat the symptoms. And one of the most common questions I get is, Kojo, Dr. Kojo, what's the point of pursuing a diagnosis? I'm 35, I'm 45, I'm 55. Well, a good reason to get a diagnosis is because now you have a term or a group of words that better explains the majority of the symptoms that you exhibit. If you're easily frustrated, you have a hard time regulating your emotions, you have a hard time regulating your attention, you have a hard time communicating with others, you feel like you're saying one thing and people are saying something else, you feel like you have to mask, your nervous system is almost dysregulated. You could have autism, you could have ADHD. And if so, you're getting it from somewhere. Where do you think you're getting it from? You're getting it from your parents. If your mother was somebody who was emotionally immature or she couldn't handle certain things and you realize that as you're getting older, you're starting to act just like your mom. You're starting to act just like your dad. It's not because you hit 32 and you just started taking on the characteristics of your mom. No, it's because there's a certain mental health condition that your mother most likely had. But because she was undiagnosed, and because you don't have a diagnosis yet, you don't know what to call it. So you just feel like, oh, I turned 35, and when mama was 35, this is what mama was doing, so I'm turning into my parents. And we do turn into our parents as we get older. I think that's true. But when you have a diagnosis, when you have a group of words that better explains the majority of the symptoms that you exhibit, now you have an advantage. The advantages that your parents didn't have, you had those advantages. We can position ourselves for success so much more because we know, okay, maybe the reason why mom struggled with her moods is because she had ADHD. Or maybe it's not even neurodivergence, maybe it's bipolar, or whatever the case may be. But when you have a diagnosis, you are positioned to succeed. It doesn't mean that you are not good or you're lacking or other people are better than you. No, it just means that this is a group of words that explains the behaviors that you exhibit. And keep in mind, if you have ADHD, if you have autism, you have those conditions. It doesn't have you. Pay attention to that part. You have ADHD. You have autism. It doesn't have you. Once you know that this is what you have, we can position ourselves for success. And sometimes we can go back and teach our parents things if we still have our parents around. We can sit them down and say, hey, mom, hey, dad, this is what you got. And this is why you were in the positions that you were in. But I got the diagnosis so I can come back and explain to you and remind you that you got to book an appointment too.